Hello, and in this recording we're going to do a quick walkthrough of how to set up the new feature in the eDiscovery platform version 9.5.1 to link the eDiscovery platform to your Active Directory in Microsoft Azure in the cloud for Office 365. And as part of that, we will also walk through how to set up collections from Office 365. Now, before we begin, there are a few things we need to cover. First of all, collecting from Office 365 requires some permissions. So we need a couple of items. So here are the items that we will require, and I will walk you through how to set them up. We will need a tenant name. We need a tenant ID, which we will get from Microsoft Azure portal. We need the Azure tenant client secret, which we will also generate in the Microsoft Azure portal, and the Microsoft Azure app ID, which we also get from the Microsoft Azure portal. So to set this up, the first thing we need to do is go to portal.azure.com and log in. Now your Office 365 administrator or your Azure administrator will have this information and will have the ability to create this. Most IT people will not have the ability to set this up, or our legal department will not have the ability to set this up. So you will need to get your administrator to create these IDs for you and provide them to you. The first thing we're going to do is, from this interface, from the Azure portal, we're going to turn around and register an application. If you do not have register application like I do here, listed here in the first interface when you log in, your administrator will actually go up here and do app, type app reg, and it will actually give you the application registration. So you click on the application registration, and in here we're going to create a new application. So we're going to do a new registration. So you can give it a name that is a descriptive name, and in this case I'm going to give it, let's say, O365 ID for EDP. So we give it a quick descriptor. Now, the next section about supported account types. By default, the very first option, which is a single tenant option, is selected. We highly recommend you use that for security reasons, and it also maps one-to-one your application to your cloud environment. You do not have to set any other settings here. You just click register, and that creates your app. Now, from here, we need a few pieces of information. The tenant ID, which is right here, and the client ID. So first of all, let's get a tenant ID. So we copy this, and we're also going to get the tenant, the application ID. So the application ID is right here. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to store these for later. The next thing we need to do is give permissions to the app, to the various services within Azure, which is also part of Office 365. So if we scroll down here, we have the View API permissions. We click on this, and you see we have basic nothing in there but read. So we need to add permissions in here. So we click on Add Permission, and the permission type we're going to use once we have add permissions. First of all, we're going to use the Graph API. The Graph API is what's recommended by Microsoft to be used. So it gives you access to all of the resources in Office 365, like you have the mobility, you have the Azure ID, the Excel, Office, Outlook, OneDrive, and so on. So we're only going to set up for a couple of the services. So we're going to click on the Graph API, and now you have another two options here. You have the delegated permissions or the application. And since we're setting up an app, we're going to do the application permissions. Now we are presented with a long list of applications permissions here. So we have to scroll down through each of these and assign the necessary permissions we need. So let's go down a little bit here, and we'll go to our calendar, and we're going to grant calendar read permission. We're going to do contacts, again read access. In files, we're going to give read all. We're going to go down to mail, Again, we're going to give mail read access, and under sites, again it gets read access, read all for sites. To users, we're going to do a read all. Now we also need to add directory, so let's scroll back up here. I forgot to add directory. We're going to do a read all directory because we only want to be able to read the Active Directory, and the same for groups. Read and group membership read. And now that we've set up these permissions, we're turning around and we're going to add these permissions. Now this will give you a list of the permissions that we've added, and once that's already in the permissions are what you need to grant access, because by default these are not granted access. So to grant access, come back up here and click on grant access and say yes, and these should all change to green. So as you see here, the necessary permissions are granted. Now that this is done, our next step is to set up our certificates and secrets. So we have the secure secret to log in for the application to use to log into the system. So we go to certificates and secrets, and in here we're going to create a new client secret. Now you have options in here to give it a descriptor again. So this again is going to be the O365 app ID for EDP secret. Now you have the option to set it for 1 year, 2 years, or never. Never means it doesn't expire. So I'm going to set mine to never temporarily. Now one thing you must remember, once we add this here, we're going to get a secret code. The secret code is limited and only is viewable once. Once you leave the screen after we apply this, the secret code is gone. You can never retrieve it. So you'll have to go out and reset up a new app ID, a new secret for that app ID again. Okay, so remember the code because you will have to copy that code. So we click on add, and this generated our secret ID. So here's our secret. We want to copy that, and we want to put in our client secret in here, because that's the only time you'll ever see the secret code. The moment we leave the screen, that code is gone, and you'll have to reset it up again. So once we have that information done and it's set up, our next step is actually to go into the eDiscovery platform and set up a sync to the Office 365 environment.